I'm Big Bear. There ain't no little bear here today. And welcome to Brown Bear Wargaming, Run VT.
So, as we mentioned in a previous video, we were lucky enough to be invited to our very first tournament. Since starting the hobby, I've slowly been building up my collection of Space Marines under the Raven Guard chapter, and Little Bear has started to collect his own army of orcs. However, whilst building my army list, I did notice that I didn't have something key and needed a warlord to lead my army into battle. I did have a really cool captain in Phobos armour, which I'd painted up as one of my very first minis, and I really liked him and I thought he could lead my Raven Guard chapter, but I felt I needed a proper warlord. A chapter master, as you may. Step forward, Kayvaan Shrike. Kayvaan Shrike, chapter master of the Raven Guard. Despite the preeminence of his rank, he prefers to be at the forefront of battle, leading his brothers, taking out enemy characters with his special pistol, the Blackout pistol, or slicing apart the enemy with his Raven Talons, a unique set of lightning claws. This new model was certainly going to test my very beginner painting skills, but I wanted to ensure that in my first tournament my army was led properly, regardless of how good or not so good his stats truly are. Bizarrely, this is one of the only models in my army so far I've built from scratch. The majority of my models have been pre-loved that I've picked up from friends and family, as well as visiting Mark over at Murfield Miniatures. And so this was a new experience for me, following the instructions, ensuring I prepared the model with the care it deserved. I know a lot of people despise the building part of the hobby, but for me, I really enjoyed this aspect. Perhaps this was as it was new, but ensuring I got the posing positions right gave me great interest in this new skill. Once assembled, I decided to keep Shrike's head on the sprue. I felt that in order to get the best paint job I could on this model, I needed to give this new method a try. Again, it's something I haven't done before, so let's see how it turns out. I primed the model in white from a spray can. I wanted to try and emulate the box art as best I could, with a few minor tweaks to personalise it myself. I usually undercoat in black for my Marines, as that's the main colour. However, this model has a lot of white on his arms and the helmet that's attached to his hip, and putting white on black has proved difficult with other models, so I felt this was the right way to go. I started by picking out the details, namely the brown satchels, various snack bags on his chest and his holster for his gun. I did this knowing that any mistakes would be easy to fix now, as a lot of the model will end up being black later anyway. I then moved on to the red details. The lenses on the helmet in particular were rather tricky, the shoulder pad outline, and a few other parts that I felt needed a bit of red. Next up came the black. Now, rather than the usual Abaddon black that I normally paint with, I opted to try and use the Black Legion contrast paint. This feels a bit like a watered down Abaddon black, but actually it went on really well. I was surprised how well, in fact. I chose to give it a second coat and I was really impressed with the matte finish it gave the model. Shrike is really starting to come together now. Whilst I let the armour dry, I moved on to his head. For me, the really tricky bit. The really tricky bit. I haven't had much experience with heads so far. I started by using the contrast paint for his emo, goth, greasy hairdo, and I then moved on with a bit more of a flesh tone, which I thinned down with a little water. Next time I do this, I think I'll go for a slightly darker coat of flesh tone first before adding the lighter tone as more of a highlight. But I'm still a beginner, and I've noticed that watering down my paints is definitely something I need to look at doing more in the future. Some silver came next for his face mask and his antenna strapped to the side of his head, and I then tried my best to add more detail in his eyes and use a wash all over to help make the flesh not so bright. My final stage was to add something a little different to the box art, and that was using some green and blues for the feathers, and pipes off his blackout pistol as well. And there's a few Ravensguard specific aspects to this model, and I really wanted them to stand out, and I feel the green just does that. Time to stick his head in place and move on to the base. And unfortunately, my camera decided not to record this part of the process. But anyway, here he is in all his glory. What do you think? Now I have my warlord, it's time to jump in the car, get to the tournament and see how we get on. If you want to add this cool mini to your collection just for a bit of fun, or if you do in fact collect Ravensguard yourself, then follow the link in the description down below. This link will take you to our affiliate, Wayland Games. For over 10 years now, Wayland Games has stood out as Europe's largest independent retailer for tabletop hobbies. You'll find great value and savings on favourites like Warhammer 40,000 and War Machine, but that's not all. They have a massive range of products from Star Wars to Star Trek, from Dungeons and Dragons to Dice Towers, magnets to Magic the Gathering, even Pokemon. So whether you're visiting them for the first time or you've shopped with them many times in the past, then welcome to Wayland Games. Use the link in the description down below and use it to purchase your next products, and not only do you get a nice discount on retail prices, you'll also help out Brown Bear Wargaming. Thanks for watching. I've been Big Bear. Little Bear's somewhere playing on his Xbox. Happy gaming.